Outsmarting someone isn't about playing games. It's not about tricking people or pretending to be something you're not. It's not even about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the most in control, the one who stays grounded when everything around them begins to shake. Because real power, the kind that lasts, doesn't come from aggression or manipulation. It comes from composure. It comes from discipline. It comes from knowing exactly who you are, what you stand for, and refusing to lose yourself no matter how chaotic the moment becomes. We live in a world that rewards noise. The loudest voice gets attention. The quickest reaction gets views. The most dramatic person seems to win the argument. But real strength doesn't perform. It observes, it assesses, it waits. Outsmarting someone doesn't mean out-talking them. It means out-centering them. It means keeping your cool when they lose theirs. It means being prepared when they're guessing. And it means walking away with your integrity intact, even when they try to pull you into the dirt. Because here's the truth. Intelligence without control is chaos. Knowledge without ethics is danger. You can read every book on human behavior, every tactic on persuasion, every strategy on negotiation. But if you can't control your emotions, you'll hand over your power to whoever pushes your buttons first. Emotional control is the silent weapon of the strong. It's what allows you to think clearly when others panic, to speak with purpose when others babble, and to lead without having to dominate. When people think of outsmarting others, they imagine confrontation. A winner and a loser. Someone who comes out on top. But that's not what true mastery looks like. True mastery is invisible. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seek validation. It's the person who can de-escalate a fight without raising their voice. The one who makes a decision under pressure, not from ego, but from clarity. Outsmarting anyone begins with outsmarting yourself, your fears, your impulses, your insecurities. So, if you want to gain real influence, the kind that earns respect instead of demanding it, you need to learn to master 5 things: your mind, your information, your words, your environment, and your ethics. These are the rules that separate those who lead with fear from those who lead with strength. Outsmarting someone isn't about trickery, deceit, or manipulation. It's not about playing mind games or pretending to be cleverer than everyone else. Outsmarting someone is about mastery. Mastery over your emotions, over your impulses, and over your presence. It's about being so composed, so centered, that nothing and no one can pull you out of alignment. Because the truth is, power doesn't belong to the loudest person in the room. It belongs to the calmest. The one who listens before speaking, observes before reacting, and acts only when the timing is right. We live in an age of instant reactions. People rush to speak, rush to respond, rush to prove they're right. But the person who pauses, the person who stays deliberate and grounded, that's the person who wins the long game. Outsmarting someone isn't about crushing them. It's about understanding them, reading them, and staying 2 steps ahead without losing your integrity. When others are guessing, you are prepared. When others are emotional, you are rational. And when others are busy trying to control the situation, you've already mastered yourself. There's a certain kind of quiet strength in people who don't flinch under pressure. You can see it in their eyes. They don't rush to fill silence. They don't need to prove their worth. They let others reveal themselves. That's what real intelligence looks like. It's awareness, not arrogance. Because when you truly know how to read a room, a tone, or a face, you don't have to manipulate anyone. You simply position yourself correctly. You choose your responses wisely. You lead by example, not force. And that's the difference between dominance and mastery. Dominance demands attention. Mastery commands respect. Dominance wants to be seen. Mastery is quietly undeniable. The one who's mastered themselves never needs to say they're in control. Everyone just feels it. Every interaction you have, every negotiation, every argument, every decision is an exchange of energy. The person who controls that energy controls the outcome, and that begins with you. If you lose control of your emotions, you hand over your power. If you let anger, fear, or pride dictate your response, you've already been outsmarted. Because influence starts internally. Once you can regulate what's happening inside, you can shape what happens outside. But here's what most people don't understand. Outsmarting someone doesn't mean you always win. Sometimes the smartest move is to walk away. Sometimes it's knowing when silence says more than words ever could. Sometimes it's realizing that proving your point isn't worth losing your peace. That's strategic composure, the ability to stay focused on the long-term victory instead of the short-term ego hit. To outsmart anyone, and I mean anyone, you must become a student of human behavior. You must learn to read patterns, to see what others miss. Pay attention to what people do, not just what they say. Their tone, their timing, their hesitation. These reveal more truth than words ever will. Knowledge is power, yes, but awareness is freedom. The sharper your awareness, the fewer mistakes you make. You'll notice that the most effective people, the ones others naturally follow, aren't reactive. They're intentional. They don't waste energy trying to control others. They control the environment, the energy, and their own emotions, and that's what gives them authority. So if you want to truly outsmart others, start here. Master yourself first, because until you can master your own mind, your emotions will always betray you. And once you can stay calm in the middle of chaos, once you can think clearly when others panic, you've already won half the battle. Now let's go deeper. Let's break this mindset down into 5 powerful rules that will change how you move, how you think, and how you lead. Not by force, but by quiet, undeniable influence. Everything begins and ends with your mind. If you can't control your emotions, someone else will. The world will test your patience, your composure, your ability to think clearly when everything seems to be falling apart. And the moment you react instead of respond, you've given away your power. That's how people lose control. Not because they aren't intelligent, but because they let emotion drive logic. Mastering your mind means learning to slow down that emotional surge before it controls you. When someone provokes you, when they insult you, when they try to get under your skin, pause. Don't respond immediately. Breathe. In that moment, you're not suppressing your emotion, you're directing it. That pause is your power. It's where clarity enters. While the other person burns their energy reacting, you are conserving yours. You are observing. And that's what true psychological advantage looks like. Composure under pressure. Most people confuse silence with weakness. But silence is the language of discipline. It's what separates those who are impulsive from those who are strategic. Your calm presence communicates authority. Your stillness speaks confidence. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You just need to remain steady when others lose balance. When you stay composed, you automatically lead. Practice it daily. The next time something frustrates you, before you speak, before you text, before you decide, take 3 slow breaths. Ask yourself, what outcome do I want here? Not, how do I feel? But, what's the most effective move? That shift in mindset turns chaos into strategy. Control your reaction, and you control the direction. Because emotional intelligence isn't softness, it's strength under discipline. Mastering your mind doesn't make you emotionless. It makes you intentional. You still feel, but you decide how, when, and where to release those emotions. That's leadership, that's self-command. That's how you begin to outsmart not just others, but the part of yourself that sabotages your potential. Once your mind is stable, your perception sharpens. You start seeing details others miss. You hear what's not being said. And that brings us to the second rule, the foundation of every great strategist and every great leader. Gather the facts. Knowledge is leverage, but only when it's accurate. Too many people make decisions based on assumptions, rumors, or what they feel instead of what they know. That's why they lose control in conversations, arguments, and negotiations. They react to half-truths instead of seeking clarity. To outsmart anyone, you must discipline your mind to verify before responding, to understand before judging, and to observe before acting. Listening, real listening, is one of the most underrated forms of intelligence. Most people listen to reply. You must listen to read. Read tone, posture, eyes, hesitation. Every person tells you a story, even when they're trying not to. Their body language will reveal when they're lying, uncertain, or insecure. Words can deceive, patterns rarely do. So before you respond, before you take a stand, gather the facts. This rule isn't about being suspicious of everyone. It's about being aware. The more information you collect, the less likely you are to be manipulated. When you truly understand what's happening, you can choose your response strategically rather than emotionally. In a world full of noise, the one who observes in silence gains the most clarity. Ask better questions. Instead of assuming someone's intention, ask, "Can you clarify that?" Or, "What makes you feel that way?" These questions disarm people. They force honesty. They make others reveal their reasoning, their motives, their blind spots. The more you let people talk, the more they tell you what you need to know. That's not manipulation. That's mastery through patience. Preparation is another form of respect. Respect for yourself and for the outcome. When you walk into a meeting, a conversation, or even a conflict, know your facts. Know the data, know your position, and know theirs. Preparation gives you confidence, and confidence creates calm. Because when you know your ground, you don't need to defend it. You simply stand on it. And here's something people often forget. Sometimes, gathering facts means gathering silence. Not every truth needs to be shared immediately. Some information is best kept to yourself until the right moment. Timing is everything. The person who speaks first often reveals the most. The one who listens longest often wins. You gain psychological advantage not by overpowering others, but by out-observing them. Pay attention to the small things, how someone avoids a question, how they over-explain, how they fidget. Each of these is a signal. Train your awareness to see what others overlook, and you'll begin to lead without saying a word. Listening is power. Observation is power. Patience is power. When you combine all three, you move through any interaction with quiet confidence. Because the truth is, people trust those who make them feel understood, not those who try to prove they're right. Once you've mastered the art of gathering facts, your next challenge is expressing yourself with precision. It's not enough to know the truth. You must be able to communicate it with authority. Every word must carry intention, clarity, and control. That's where the next rule comes in. Communicate with precision. Words are power. They can calm storms or start them. They can build trust or destroy it. And yet, most people use them carelessly. They speak to fill silence rather than to create impact. If you want to outsmart anyone, you must speak with intention. Every sentence should serve a purpose. Every word should be deliberate. Precision in communication is not about saying more. It's about saying less, but making it count. When you communicate, don't seek validation. Seek clarity. Stop using soft language that weakens your authority. Words like maybe, I think, or I guess. Replace them with decisive phrases. I will. I've decided. This is the direction we're going. That shift in language rewires how people perceive you. Uncertain words create uncertain energy. Strong words create stability. Remember, confidence doesn't shout. It states. You don't need to convince others that you know what you're talking about. You simply need to know. The tone of quiet certainty is far more powerful than loud persuasion. And here's something crucial. Communication isn't just what you say. It's what you allow. If someone interrupts you, talks over you, or disrespects your boundaries, stop them. Calmly, directly. Say, let me finish my point. That single act asserts leadership. Because people will only treat your words as valuable when you do. Learn to communicate with structure. Start with purpose, deliver with confidence, and end with clarity. Never trail off or leave your message open for interpretation. The less people have to guess, the more authority you project. When you speak, let your words reflect control, not ego, not emotion, but discipline. And when you're done speaking, stop. Don't oversell. Don't over-explain. Leave your silence hanging. Let it speak for you. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Once you master your words, it's time to master the setting in which they land. Every conversation, every negotiation, every confrontation exists within a frame, and whoever sets that frame controls the outcome. That's the next step. Every interaction has a context, an invisible boundary that defines how things unfold. If you don't set that boundary, someone else will. Controlling the frame means defining the purpose, tone, and direction before anyone else has the chance to. It's leadership without aggression. When you enter a room, don't adapt to the chaos. Set the energy. Walk in, knowing what you're there to do, and communicate it early. Here's what we're discussing. Here's the goal. That clarity disarms confusion and sets the stage for influence. People feel safer following someone who knows where they're going. Controlling the frame doesn't mean dominating others. It means establishing clarity. It's about creating a space where emotional noise is replaced with structure. When you define the purpose, you reduce uncertainty, and when people feel certain, they follow. This applies everywhere, in business, in relationships, in conflict. The person who defines what this is defines the rules. So never walk into a situation without a plan. Know the result you want and guide the conversation toward it, calmly, confidently, respectfully. And if the situation shifts, don't panic. Reframe it, redirect the focus. Let's get back to the main point. Simple phrases like that keep you in control without confrontation. Leadership is not about force, it's about focus. You don't overpower the situation, you steer it. When you control the frame, you control perception. You become the stable center others orbit around. And once you've learned to lead environments with composure, there's one final rule that solidifies everything. The rule that defines your reputation, your integrity, and your long-term power. Real power has limits. True mastery includes knowing when to stop, when to walk away, and when to protect your peace. Ethics are your boundaries, your moral compass in a world full of shortcuts. If you have to lie, manipulate, or betray to win, then the win was never yours to begin with. Influence without integrity is instability. It might work for a moment, but it won't last. The people who lead with deception eventually fall under the weight of their own tactics. But the ones who lead with ethics, they build trust that outlives every temporary advantage. Ethics keep your influence clean. They allow you to sleep at night knowing you didn't compromise who you are to prove a point. That's not weakness, that's strength in its purest form. It's the strength to choose reputation over reaction, legacy over ego. But with ethics comes strategy. You must always have a line, a personal limit you do not cross and will not allow others to cross either. Once that line is breached, you disengage, not out of anger, but out of principle. Sometimes, walking away is the most powerful move you can make, because when you walk away with your integrity intact, you've already won. The world will try to pull you into battles that don't deserve your energy. Not every challenge needs to be fought. Not every comment needs to be answered. And not every opponent deserves your attention. Choose your battles carefully, because every reaction you give costs energy, and your energy is your power. True dominance, real mastery, is not about control over others. It's about control over self. You don't need to destroy anyone to prove your strength. You just need to rise above them, quietly, confidently, consistently. And when you combine these 5 rules, mental control, awareness, precise communication, environmental leadership, and unwavering ethics, you become untouchable. You don't play the game, you define it. You don't chase power, you embody it. There's a story I often think about, not because it's dramatic, but because it's ordinary. It's a moment that happens every single day in offices, homes, and boardrooms around the world. A team meeting, tension in the air, voices climbing over one another, everyone trying to be heard, no one actually listening. You've probably seen it before. Maybe you've even been in that room. Chaos disguised as communication. That's where real leadership reveals itself. In this meeting, things were falling apart. Deadlines missed, tempers rising, blame flying from one side of the table to the other. Everyone was defending their corner, protecting their ego. One person, though, didn't join the noise. He sat still, calm, composed. He listened, not to reply, but to observe. He was reading every gesture, every tone, every shift of energy. He could see that the louder people got, the less they understood one another. So he waited, patiently. Then, when the noise finally began to collapse under its own weight, he spoke. His voice was quiet, measured, but it cut through the room like steel. "Let's stop pointing fingers," he said. "We're not here to find fault. We're here to find a solution." And suddenly, the dynamic changed. People stopped talking over each other. The air softened. The focus shifted from conflict to resolution. That's what control looks like, not shouting to dominate, but speaking with precision to redirect. What that leader did in that moment was apply every rule we've talked about. He mastered his mind. He didn't let anger dictate his reaction. He gathered the facts. He observed before speaking. He communicated with precision, short, clear, unshakable. He controlled the frame, redefined the moment from confrontation to collaboration, and he upheld his ethics. He didn't humiliate or overpower anyone to make his point. He led with integrity. That's what real psychological advantage looks like in practice. It's not about showing people how powerful you are. It's about showing them how centered you are. Power that comes from ego is unstable. It needs constant validation. But power that comes from composure is unshakable. It doesn't demand respect. It commands it naturally. That's the kind of power that influences rooms, shapes conversations, and builds trust that lasts long after the moment is over. You see, every environment you walk into will test you. Someone will challenge your authority, question your judgment, or try to provoke you just to see what happens. That's human behavior. But those moments aren't traps, they're opportunities. Every provocation is a test of self-control. Every argument is a test of emotional awareness. Every challenge is a mirror showing you what still triggers you. When you can stand there, calm, composed, and deliberate, you're not just outsmarting them, you're mastering yourself. And here's what most people never realize. Leadership isn't about controlling people. It's about influencing outcomes. When you can hold your composure in a storm, people look to you for direction. They start to mirror your energy. Your calm becomes contagious. That's the quiet authority of someone who knows their values and refuses to be moved by chaos. In that meeting, no one remembered the shouting. They remembered the stillness. They remembered the clarity. They remembered the person who didn't need to raise their voice to change the entire atmosphere. That's the essence of mental and emotional strength, still waters with depth beneath them. So when you find yourself in a heated exchange, a difficult negotiation, or a moment that feels like it's spiraling out of control, remind yourself, this is your test. This is where all your preparation, your awareness, your communication, and your ethics converge. This is where composure becomes command. Stay centered, stay alert, stay ethical. That's how you outsmart the chaos, not by overpowering it, but by transcending it. And this is where everything connects, where every rule you've learned becomes action, not theory. Because mastery isn't proven when things are calm, it's proven when pressure hits. And in that space, between reaction and response, between ego and discipline, lies the moment where true influence begins. Outsmarting others was never the goal. Outsmarting yourself, your impulses, your fears, your ego, that's where true mastery begins. Because in the end, every challenge you face, every confrontation, every test of composure is really a mirror showing you who you are when the mask comes off. When the pressure rises, when things don't go your way, when someone tries to undermine you, that's when your discipline steps forward or disappears. Those moments don't break you, they reveal you. You will meet people who test your patience, who misunderstand your calm for weakness, who try to pull you into their chaos. Let them reveal themselves while you hold your ground. Because your strength is not measured by how loudly you respond. It's measured by how little they can shake you. There is a quiet kind of dominance that doesn't announce itself. It's the power of the person who refuses to react, who knows their worth so deeply they no longer need to prove it. Remember, control isn't about bending others to your will. It's about holding yourself steady when everything around you bends. The greatest leaders, the most unbreakable minds, are not those who never feel anger or fear. They're the ones who learn how to manage it. They turn emotion into energy and energy into focus. That's what sets them apart. They prepare when others procrastinate. They listen when others interrupt. They act when others panic. And they do it all with integrity intact. There will be moments when silence feels heavy, when walking away feels like losing, when choosing calm feels like surrender. It isn't. Those are the moments when power changes hands. Every time you choose peace over reaction, you reclaim control. Every time you walk away from what disrespects your values, you reinforce your authority. Every time you stand firm without raising your voice, you elevate yourself above the noise. To outsmart anyone, you don't have to be faster. You just have to be stiller. You don't have to outtalk them. You have to outthink them. You don't have to win every argument. You just have to make sure you never lose yourself in one. That's the essence of being unbreakable. These rules, mastering your mind, gathering the facts, communicating with precision, controlling the frame, and protecting your ethics, they're not just tactics. They're a way of life. They train you to move with intention, to see beyond emotion, and to lead through composure. Apply one of them today, just one. Use it in a conversation, in a conflict, or in a decision. Watch how differently people respond when your energy shifts from reactive to strategic. Your goal is not to dominate others. It's to dominate your environment by mastering yourself within it. When you do that, you stop chasing respect and start earning it naturally. You stop fighting for power because you've become the source of it. So wherever you go, a meeting, a conversation, a moment of tension, remember this. You are not here to prove you're stronger. You are here to show that nothing can move you from your center. That's real strength. That's real intelligence. That's what it means to be unbreakable. This is Unbreakable Mindset. Outsmart with integrity. Lead with strength.